Right, I will ask my panel to introduce themselves one by one, give a very brief overview of what they do and why they're up here, I suppose. Starting with James.
Thanks. My name is James Barton, and I am the founder and the CEO of the Cream Group. Amongst the other things that we do, we own and operate a festival called Creamfields, which is based in Cheshire. The festival takes place on every August bank holiday. It's a 2-day festival, and hopefully it's going to sell out this year. I also am a partner in a festival in London called LED, which takes place in June this year in Victoria Park. And I've been in and around the festival business and nightclub business for the best part of 20 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Fiona Stewart. I'm the Managing Director of the Green Man Festival. It's an annual event which takes place in South Wales. It's an independent festival, and it runs for, well, 7 days now, including the holiday ticket part of the event. I'm also a consultant for the British Council and Foreign Office regarding developing events internationally, or British events internationally, and I'm an advisor to the Welsh Assembly Government's Creative Advisory Board on their panel as a panel member. I've been involved in events for many years. Originally probably one of the few women who was, and luckily there's, keep the faces here, there's quite a few women who want to be. That's it.
Afternoon everyone, my name is Steve Henderson. I'm a senior lecturer at Leeds Met in the UK Centre for Events Management. So we've got our students are behind the bar, so if you've got any complaints, speak to them, not me. My involvement with music started at the other university, at Leeds University, where I was a social sec there in the late 70s. So you get something like that.
Not a rock star, really.
So I started just up the road at Leeds University when I was social sec in the late 70s, and unlike various other folks who left there, like Stuart Galbraith and people like that, I didn't go straight into the music business, but as probably a few people in the audience know, once you've been a promoter, it's a kind of drug disease almost that you have that you can't get rid of, and so I found myself back promoting a few shows for charity and educating in events management, which has been a boom area for the last few years.
Thank you. Holly.
Hello, I'm Holly Payton. I run a company called World Festival Network. It's quite a new company, and it has online and offline facilities. So online it's a kind of listings and directory website, and on offline I do fringe festival consultancy, introductions, panel discussions, events and things like that. I founded the Brighton Fringe as we know it today, and I've worked at the Edinburgh Festival, International Festival and Fringe, and Brighton International Festival, amongst many things and many other festivals. I'm also an Arts Council assessor for RFOs at the moment. So yeah, lots of fingers in many, many pies.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm Jim Maudsley. I am the director of the Evolution Festival, which takes place in Newcastle at the end of May annually. It's a little bit different to a normal run-of-the-mill festival, and it's an urban festival. It takes place in the city centre, although it's got a 33,000 capacity 2-day event, 4 stages, 3 sites. We built the event up. It used to be a free festival years ago. It's now a fully commercial festival. We built the event up since 1999 when it first started as a small multi-venue festival. I've been in the business for about 25 years. I started life similar to Steve as a social secretary, where I first met Mr. Bell, who's standing at the back there. I've sort of developed promotional skills at all different levels. I've done gigs in pubs right through to I was involved in a club night called Shindig for 12 years. We did parties all over the world, which is how I got to know James quite well at those times. I started in events in about 2001 when we started producing 3,000–4,000 capacity dance events, and it's just grown from there really. I'm also the chief exec of an organisation called Generator, which is the UK's leading music development agency, And we do about 75% of our work is developing music businesses. We run with Higher Rhythm, Frank's here from Higher Rhythm, the Yorkshire Music Network, which is called Plugged In, and we develop music businesses in Yorkshire and the North East, and we also do some artist development programs as well.
Lovely, thank you very much. So as you can see, we have a very experienced and very well informed panel. The format of this afternoon, just for housekeeping methods, I think we're going to have about an hour or so of discussion among us on the panel. There will be then an hour for questions and open forum discussion from the floor after that. But if you have a burning question while we're all ranting away, please just stick your hand up. There's a couple of runners that will bring a mic to you, and please do get involved. This is very much about festivals sharing knowledge together and asking questions and bringing their own real-life examples to bear so that everyone can find common solutions to challenges that they may be faced, especially during this time of difficulties. I guess to get started, we are in tough economic times. I don't want to be all doom and gloom about this. This isn't all terrible, but I think, well, James, are you very mindful of reducing consumer spending power, that kind of thing? The fact that people who are buying tickets might not have as much money in their pocket at the moment, particularly in regards to when it comes to setting the ticket price, and the impact on sort of food and beverage sales on site. Is that something that's in your mind, and what are you doing to counter that?
Well, being a festival that was, I suppose, born and raised in Liverpool and now still sells the majority of its tickets in the northwest of England, pricing has always been at the forefront of our thinking. We sell all of our tickets to an age group which is between 18 and 22, or the majority, and you know, the majority of our audience are not that well off. They will probably save up for months and months and months to come and have the best experience they possibly can at Greenfields. So pricing has always been a big issue for us, to such an extent that at the outset of the financial crisis, moving out of 2008, moving into 2009, we actually dropped our ticket price. We spent months and days and weeks agonising over the impact that the ticket price would have and what perception dropping the tickets would give to the audience, because confidence is everything in festivals and events, and if you've got no confidence, you've got no ticket sales. And I felt really strongly about it personally. My PR girl was constantly badgering me every day, saying, oh, the press will be all over us, the media will be saying this, everyone will be saying negative stuff about it. But at the end of the day, I still kept coming back to the same thing, which is that a cheaper ticket's a cheaper ticket, no matter what the motives are, or no matter what the media or the press would say. And I was actually really surprised that no other festival in the UK that year, as far as I'm aware, I'm sure somebody in here will tell me I'm wrong, never dropped their ticket prices either. The end result was that we sold the festival out for the first time in about 8 years. Not only did we garner a lot of goodwill for making a big decision of dropping the ticket price, but we also sold a lot of tickets, and we had a bit of a snowball effect. I think the positivity and the goodwill that we got from dropping the tickets by £15, and we went out with a camping ticket of £100, was one of the key reasons why I think we sold the festival out that year, backed up with, I think, a good festival in 2008, and also a very good year, a very good ticket that year. So, and even this year now, we still had an early bird ticket on sale at £100. We feel as though it's really important for us to try and hit up the audience on a number of different ticket prices. There will always be people who can afford to pay £200 for a VIP experience, but we also should be making a ticket available for the kids who can't afford that, who genuinely have got £100 to spend for a weekend. And I think if you look around the festival industry, there's not many festivals that are offering a 2-day festival or a 3-day festival for £100. They all tend to be 125 to 150. And even this year, I think after the 3 years or 2 years after we introduced this, and maybe people feel the economic situation is a little bit better than it was back then. We still feel that it's really important to have a ticket priced around that level, and actually some of our competitors who didn't do what we did in 2009 are actually doing it today. So unfortunately the mantle of Creamfields being the cheapest dance festival out there is not true this year, because we're a bit more expensive, because all of our competitors are now trying to undercut us. But we certainly felt as though it was the first. And again, food and beverage is the same. As we know, beer is really expensive at festivals. It's really important to the festival organisers that they generate as much money as they can from food and beverage. But we still try and keep it at a level which is below what you would expect to pay at a mainstream festival. We're not the cheapest. I don't think we are the cheapest. Don't claim to be the cheapest, but I think we're slightly cheaper than what you get at a mainstream festival like V or Redland Leeds or Glastonbury or something like that. So I think it's really important to finish off.
Thanks. So how much is a pint of beer? And did you don't have to answer this, but when you dropped the ticket price, you did sell out. What was the effect on your bottom line? Like I say, you don't have to answer this, but it would be interesting to know if lowering the ticket price but selling out painting you in a better or worse position than the year before.
Well, I did an interview for, I think it was Audience magazine, and the guy said to me, "Where does this money come from?" And I told him, I said, "It's coming out of my bottom line." I said, I've had 10 amazing years with this festival. Actually, this business has provided me with a fucking good lifestyle. So taking a hit for the first year, for that year on the bottom line, it was something we felt really strongly we should be showing our audience, that in a year when, they had less money in their pockets, we were going to ask them to pay less money for the ticket. The net effect was we made more money on the festival than that year that we have done numerous years. So actually, it was a genius piece of marketing, business, whatever you want to call it. So actually, we didn't financially suffer. We actually sold more tickets, sold the festival out, and generated more profit.
Thank you. Fiona, same question to you really. Are you mindful of the ticket prices at the moment, and what are your anticipations with regard to rising unemployment and the problems with the public sector and so on that we're having?
I do worry about ticket implants, and I do worry about the idea and perception of spend, which is happening at the moment. I think people will pay something if they feel that it's fair, if they feel that you're not trying to push it too much, if they feel that they're going to get value for money. And putting through an ideology of value for money is a very elemental part of our brand voice for the Green Man. We have a lot of families who come to the festival, and the age group is quite wide. So we get a lot of young people, we get a lot of families, we sometimes get a few older people too. It's people who come to the Green Man tend to go there because they like the nice food, it's a pretty place, they love the music, and that's what brings them together. It's not an age demographic as such, where it's just proportional between 18 and 25, etc. From a pricing point of view, I usually undercut my competitors by £10 quite blatantly, and I offer other incentives, quality incentives, which will create a better experience. We offer the holiday ticket, which is only £40 more on the main ticket price, which is literally it's camping really. People can come from the Monday, so they can have a whole 7 days in Wales if they wish, including a festival ticket. So the festival ticket for the Green Man is 135 this year, so plus the 40 quid. Remember, children 12 and under go free. I partly did that because I was a single mum, and I quite like the idea of people being able to bring their kids along and having a cheap holiday. And we run quite a lot of those tickets. The local area gets a lot of money from people who come. They're out there buying and spending, and so it's a win-win situation for everyone. And it gives people that kind of quality aspect of something. There is an option of something which is reasonable and fair. And I think that you can come for a weekend with 135, you can come for the full week with a holiday ticket. You know, teenagers only paid 60 quid, and students, I think it's 105. So, you know, we're trying to give those kind of options to different kinds of people.
So you're adding value for money. Is it costing you money to add those value for money elements?
The holiday ticket I pay for. I mean, you know, you don't make money out of that kind of thing, because you've got a festival that's being built while you've got people in your campsite. So you're actually, we do have a very cheesy bar called Holiday Inn, which people congregate in at night, and which is fun. But you know, in reality, I'm encouraging them to leave my festival and drink and eat elsewhere. So it's not exactly the most financially viable thing to do. But from an overall quality experience, quality is boring, isn't it? Like, from an overall positive experience of the Green Man and what we're about as a brand, and the fact that we want to show that we're caring, it's a massive message, and people will really appreciate it.
So it's worth putting financial investment in for that feel-good factor, the extension of the brand and making it.
Well, what I'm finding is that every year, the people who've been involved in it are, you know, contacting each other on Facebook. They're coming back, they're camping together. It's becoming part of their holiday experience, and I mean the locals love it. You can imagine, you know, the fact that this is a tiny little town in the middle of Paris, and then there's, you know, thousands of people coming out, and the food around there is fantastic. So people go to the local butchers and the vegetable shops or whatever, and you know, that for them, it really, really stimulates the rural economy.
Okay, super. I suppose, obviously, apart from tickets and food and drink, sponsorship is the other key element to funding a number of festivals. But it's not just about taking the cash off the brand and saying thanks very much. Those kind of deals no longer work. I don't think brands will look to do them anymore. They're under an awful lot of pressure to justify what's being spent, particularly on festivals. So there's an awful lot more canny deals being done. I don't know if anybody here has got any experience with the sponsorship side of things who might want to speak up about sponsorship income and that kind of thing, Stephen?
Well, before you head off onto that, you kind of suggested that I should be the person who stuck their hand in the brand so they through the other end of it. So if the Greenfields thing is sort of saying this is price elasticity and how far can we drop it and then fill it up and actually make more, and you're saying about making offers, one of the other kind of things that you can think of is having different levels of ticket at your festival, so that, you know, your gold ticket gets you access into certain stages and this kind of thing. So that's another kind of thing that people can throw in there, and I just wanted to stick my hand in the brand tub, really.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's thrown your conflict.
No, it's fine, it's fine. I don't know if anybody from the floor has got any experience with sponsorship at all. With regards to anybody getting under any pressure at all, finding it hard to get a sponsor, anybody got a sponsor, anybody here from a festival? Go for it.
Previously to running the Green Man, I used to run a festival called the Big Chill Festival, which was very highly sponsored at the time, and there was lots of opportunities for in-kind sponsorship, where you would have a brand name like Mini Cooper or whatever. They'd come in and they would create a space and an area, and also give you money, and also do things for, you know, and actually bring in. Anyone to the Big Chill, remember the Mini Cooper showers? Yeah, they were lovely, weren't they? Then, you know, and they were very innovative at doing things like that. You know, they were very clever at thinking about concept and ideas. And then the other side of that, you have the booze sponsorship, which you can get. I run my own bars, so you get cheap alcohol on a return basis, which is sort of like the basic opportunity of getting involved with sponsorship. So you can run your own bars and do that. If you're actually bringing in a bar contractor to run your bars, like, I don't know which ones, you know, Peppermint,
Creative,
or Creative, yeah, then they will come in and they will offer, they'll just pay you a fee, which is another way that you can make money from your festival. If you're doing it yourself, then you need someone who's got a bar license, who can, and you go out and you just, a good way of doing it is going out and knocking on the doors of local bar and booze suppliers in your area running a festival. And that's one of the main footholds that people have a lot of the time when they run their first events, is going in there and saying, you know, we've got a sale or return option. Please make sure you do have a sale or return option, otherwise you're going to have, you know, out-of-date lager in your garage for 10 years, which is something I've done. So
I'll help. I think, actually, you mentioned about alcohol sponsors. A lot of these big brands have huge advertising spend, which I don't really see an awful lot of festivals tapping into. You know, there's so many deals done with Tuborg or Brothers or Stronger or whatever. But I don't see the alcohol brands helping to market their association with the festival as often. You know, it's certainly worth considering doing a deal with the brand where you're getting them to basically advertise your festival for you, or when you're piggybacking on their advertising spend, especially if there's so much of it there to be taken advantage of. Great.
If you saw recently the deal that Festival Republic did with Vodafone, I mean, you know, all of their festivals are currently advertised on TV. I think it's the telecoms and the media companies which are probably more beneficial. I mean, the reason why I think you don't see Brothers or Tuborg, because they're sticking all the money into festivals, so they're actually not advertising outside of the festivals. They want to stack up their product in front of people who are ready to drink it. So you won't see that many that sort of contra relationship that you're describing. Well, I certainly haven't seen it in great detail for many years. I mean, we used to do some deals with people like Pepsi and stuff like that, and we'd get the logo on like 2 million cans of Pepsi, which is great. But we don't see those deals anymore. And then the problem is you know, I probably would have got a bit green-eyed when I seen the Vodafone billboards and TV ad spends and stuff like that for all the Festival Republic shows. But if you're not in Live Nation or Festival Republic or AEG, and you're independent like I am, the chances of hooking one of those deals is zero. Not even close, zero.
But can you go, the only model we've done with the brewery is we do a deal year on year with Strongbow. We negotiated every year, and what happens is that Heineken, who own the brand, are also very linked. They bought Scottish and Newcastle breweries, so they still have a strong link to the region. They still have believe it or not, they still have an office in the region, even though they don't brew Newcastle Brown in the region anymore. And the deal is sort of multi-layered, and it just sparks something what you said, and the multi-layers are, so they brand a lot of the stuff Strongbow, that's what they want to have on the advertising, so that's a clear marketing. Then they pay us to sell their beer for them, but then we also tie in, because they've got a lot of tied houses in the area, they promote the show through the tied houses as well. We've done that with Budweiser in the past when I used to do Shindig as well. We did a deal with Budweiser through the sales people rather than the marketing people, and then we promoted the shows through the bars. So a good tip for me, if you do a show say in Leeds, is to tie it in with a local brewery who can then get you in and promote your show in a lot of their bars.
I think if there's a general acceptance that festivals need sponsors in order to survive or to make money, thus reinvest into the festival, which is my view. I know there's some festivals that object to sponsorship. You need cash. I mean, the truth is that, you know, if a sponsor comes to me and says, right, we're going to spend £1 million on radio, but we want that reflected in the deal, that means you're going to take less cash. You know, they're not going to come and give you, you know, they're cute. I mean, sponsors are probably understand the festival business more than we do in terms of sort of reams and reams and tons of research. In order for them to adapt their sort of strategy into festivals. So, you know, the truth is, If they come to me and say, right, there's 50,000
for instance, but we're going to give you this as an extra add-on and it's going to drive ticket sales for you, happy days. But I would suspect they're going to come to you and say, look, we're spending heaps amounts of money in marketing, you're attached to that. We think it'll drive ticket sales, we'll send it through all of our online networks and stuff like that. But actually, you're only going to get a fraction of the cash that you originally expect. You've got to weigh that off against what's important to you right now. You know, load of free marketing or cash, and hard cash in this business is really, really important when you've got your portal guys or your production guys or whoever who all want paying, artists who all want big paying in advance of the show, 100% in some cases, in advance of the show. You've got to want cash.
Yeah, just to echo that, that's how our cash flow is structured. We used to, as we built our event, you know, it's quite well known in the festival business that we got quite a lot of investment from the regional development agency and the two councils that we were with, Newcastle and Gateshead. That's sort of dried up now. So we were like quite heavy. We do a lot of individual rights deals, like the pouring rights, like we've got 3 or 4 regional sponsors who don't put a lot of money in, but we don't expect a lot back either. And that, you know, as James said, we have to invoice all of that in advance and use that to cash flow, obviously with our ongoing reserves for the business.
I think sponsor, I come from a different background, which is arts festivals mainly, so it's all about kind of bums on seats and selling tickets for individual events. But from our point of view, I don't speak for all arts festivals obviously, but I'm on the executive of BAFTA, which is the British Arts Festivals Association, and the information that I get back from them is that, like you were saying, sponsors want a lot more for their money now, and you know, sometimes they want to change your festival name into their festival, which quite, you know, a few people have done. The Dublin Fringe, for instance, is now called the Absolute Fringe, and you can't really find its name anywhere, which is, it's always been the Dublin Fringe. But so they want, I think it's really, really hard to get new sponsors, like you were saying, but it's really, really important to nurture the ones that you've got and work harder for them as well, and make sure that you always contact them and make sure they're okay and they're happy, and invite them to events and things like that, and just kind of like prime them really, because I think when they're dropping off, if you've got a 3-year contract and they don't renew it, I think your aim is to keep that renewals going all the time.
Just to finish, the Green Man isn't sponsored, not because, you know, people say to me because some kind of anarchistic, anti-corporate thing. It's really not that. It's because it wasn't a fit for the brand. I've never been approached by anyone who was going to offer the kind of, it's usually product people offer when the festival's the size of the Green Man, so quite small. So, for example, Walls Ice Cream approached me last year and offered me money to have their Walls Ice Cream piggyback nasty ice cream brand there. And I said no, because we have handmade ice cream from local suppliers in Pt1. And I can't, you know, it's got to be the standard because that's the expectation of the brand. But I have worked with brands and I have seen it work in other festivals really, really well. If I was running another festival with a different sort of brand voice, I would have it. Now I think it's not, you know, it's all business and it's not bad to have sponsorship, and hopefully one day, I'm working at the moment, I'll get a kind of sponsor who's going to be a good fit for the brand, who's going to help me and help advance the festival, who's going to add to it and add to the whole kind of customer experience people going on. That kind of person, I'll open the doors with. The unfortunate thing is now that because of the financial downturn, that those kind of people who did that kind of thing are pretty few and far between, because there just isn't, you know, people aren't spending the kind of money they did on sponsorship anymore.
I mean, the other thing which, I mean, is an experience for us is that we actually do run our own bars. From a very early point, we realised that in order to make your festival, to maximise the revenues and actually make a bit of profit, you need to try and control the vast majority of the revenues that you're generating as promoters. If you're putting up the stages and putting up the fence and you're selling the tickets, whatever's spent on that festival, you need to try and take a piece of it to survive. I'm not being overly commercial here, to survive. So we took control of our bars after the first year, because we realised that actually there was just as much revenue in the bars. Now we get offered sponsorship deals from Tuber and all of these brands, and we have to balance off the difference between the cash and whether my audience will buy that, actually will buy that alcohol. And we don't think that when we've done deals like that in the past, we've seen our bar spend drop because our audience, they want the mainstream brands, they want Stella, they want Budweiser. So sometimes we actually turn down the poorer rights deals because the product probably doesn't fit with us, but actually doesn't fit the audience. They don't buy it. You know, it's a bit like the ciders as well. You know, there's a lot of ciders in the market. You've got to be careful that you might take £10,000 or £15,000 listening fee from a cider product, but actually, if it doesn't sell on the day, you'll actually see you'll take a hit on the revenue as well. So, you know, it's all about balancing those things off. And like Fiona said, it's about balancing off what you need to know your audience and what they're going to accept and what they're not going to accept. There's a level, I think, which that most people will accept in terms of sponsorship, but if it goes where sponsorship becomes more important than other aspects of the festival, you know, your audience will spot that really quickly and they'll just switch off.
Thanks. So I think we've briefly sketched over the, I guess, the three core income streams: tickets, sponsorship, and food and drink. I want to move on to alternative revenue streams. Perhaps ideas that you're all taking advantage of or have for bringing other monies into the festival. I know this can be a little bit of a crude discussion sometimes, and no one likes to really talk about money an awful lot, but that's what we're all here to do, really, aren't we? Make some money, whether it's to put it back into your festival or to fund that holiday in Barbados. I want to start with perhaps adding a fringe event. Holly, what kind of an impact can that have on a festival in terms of additional revenue streams?
You mean if a festival runs a fringe itself?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of work for the money that comes in. I mean, in my experience, the festivals actually benefit from having a fringe festival running alongside them, not necessarily run by the same company. You can do, then you're stretching the resources massively. I think.
In what way does it help if someone? I mean, should James be actively encouraging Creamfield's fringe? No.
It's different for, you know, weekend ticketed festivals, because it's not really the place to have a fringe of, because they're on for a weekend, and that would be strange. But I think arts festivals and fringes, they have a kind of a more diverse way of gaining revenue, like friends schemes, philanthropic giving, all that kind of stuff, and also individual sponsorships, small amounts for different events. So if it's a classical music, someone might want to sponsor the conductor or something like that, and there's lots and lots of little pots of money that can come in and make up what you need instead of having one big headline. Obviously it's best to have all of it, not always possible. Obviously with that, it's a lot of work, and I think it's really difficult to find good salespeople who you can trust, and how to pay them as well, I think is a big issue, whether they have a retainer or they work on commission or both. I think you have to find people, get recommended for sales people unless you do it yourself. I talked the other day, and I learned, maybe you all know about it already, but an income revenue stream which is relatively new to this country and been going on for years in America is something called crowdfunding. Has anyone heard of crowdfunding? Yeah, lots of people. Well, if you haven't, it's basically, there's a couple of new websites. One of them is called wedidthis.org, and basically it's a little bit like if someone wants, they're running a marathon, they want you to sponsor you there, they have that kind of setup and you pay little bits of money. It's a little bit like that. You have these websites where you put up your project. It could be a festival, it could be a gig, it could be an event or whatever, a new arts piece, and you have a kind of budget, maybe it's 35 grand, and you've got 3 months to get there, or 5 grand, or whatever it is. You've got 3 months to get it in, and if you don't get it, then you don't get anything, and nobody pays anything either. But if you do get it, you've got all this money, and it's about kind of not just tapping into the networks of people that you already know and ask them for money, but actually people kind of cruising, and people go, you know what, I really like that idea, and I live near there, would like to see it, yeah, I'll give them a tenner, why not? And it's all about kind of getting loads of people to pay little amounts of money rather than one sponsor that wants you to change their name to their cider brand or whatever it is. Which is, for me, I thought that was quite an exciting new way of doing it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. I think festivals rely very much on commercial sponsors, whereas other arts forms rely on charitable donations and things like that and philanthropy, that kind of thing. So crowdfunding is a really interesting way. I don't know if you know, I don't know if you can answer these, but do you know if the people who have donated get anything in return? Like,
it depends on how much they give. If it's a new artist, one of them was going to send them a poster of a print, and if you believe in that artist, maybe in 5 years' time, you're going to get one of their first prints, and now they've won the Turner Prize, and actually your print is now worth thousands. Or you get, I think it was in Newcastle, it was a sustainable dance floor, and basically the more you dance on it, the more it lights up. So it's kind of, which I thought was quite cool. And people, basically you can choose songs, so if you donate, you get to choose a song for that disco or whatever it's called. So yeah, they do give.
Jim, you mentioned earlier that you had to transition from public funding to being a commercial event. I wonder if there are any lessons that you learned through that period which could apply to festivals now, while times might be tough, particularly in regards to income.
I think, the lessons to be learned really, the first one is something I've always been as a promoter, clearly stick to your guns, you've still got to make sure your product's really strong. Because people, even if you take your price for charges now, 35, because we went from 0 to 5 years ago, and we're like 35 quid for 2 days now, we still get people going, oh, it used to be free. Even though we might have a few all-white bands on, and now we've got like Plan Big and Tiny Tapper and Iggy in the studios, the level of quality's come right up. So you have to work really, really hard and drive, I know it's on our sheet here, but you have to drive really, really hard bargains with the artists and go from the point of like, well, your artist, especially if they're an emerging artist or on the way up, that you're going to be playing to 25,000 people, 30,000 people, whatever.
So I think it's really important to think about what you're doing and go at it from a different angle so you can get really good bargains. There are still a lot of artists out there who will go out and they want to play to a lot of people because they want to promote what they're doing and raise the levels. It's not just, I know we're in a different situation with recorded music nowadays and how much revenue you can get from digital and recorded music and physical sales. That's a whole new debate. But I still think you have to work really, really hard because it helps with your cash flow and because it helps with with your bottom line and paying the bills and paying artists on your revenue streams. So we've always ran our own bars, we knew that, but we came from promoting stroke, club owning, club running background originally, so we always ran our own bars, we've had, I don't smoke myself, but I have big arguments with the council every year because, Marlboro and various other cigarette companies over the years have paid us a lot of money just to have kiosks on site. And it's caused consternation, but usually the argument I give to the council is, well, you find the 20 grand or whatever it is that they're giving us, You've got to, you've very much got to stand up for yourself. We've had very supportive local authorities who not only did put money in the past, but made things quite easy for us, and because all our events are on public land as well, they don't charge. We're fortunate as we don't have to pay a land fee. So that's one of the first things if you're doing a very low ticket price is try and find a piece of land or a piece of public land that you can get for nothing, and then get as much support as you can from a local authority in terms of whether at least reduce costs for all your road closures and possibly your cleaning and things like that, where they can put things in kind. And it's like, going back to what you said, it's almost like they become a sponsor and you just try and find as many services that they can provide for either cheaply or a reduced rate or for free as possible, really.
Fiona, I think you've got some interesting ideas for engaging local communities and local authorities in terms of getting them on side, so that they can, like you said, perhaps help you out with providing places for free and so on?
Yeah, we do quite a lot of links with local businesses as part of the promotion. I mean, going back to that holiday ticket thing, I think that's obviously gets people on side. We also did a massive analysis of the financial impact of the Green Man in that area, including opportunities to see Wales via our own marketing. And we found out that we had 11 million for a small little event. We got a big brand spread, and both internationally as well. So it was just interesting because we know where people buy our tickets. Then it was interesting to collect that information and take it to local authorities and say, look, people are coming here via us. They're spending money. They're visiting the area. People actually know the area exists. I mean, analysis that was done at the Big Chill Festival a few years before, which actually, local estate agents were saying the Big Chill had a positive effect on property. And I can imagine that. With the kind of demographic that was going to the Big Chill, they were visiting Ledbury, probably for the first time. There was 35,000, 45,000 people going to that area, and they were going every year and exploring things. And if any of you go to festivals, then you get to know that event. You start having your own routines, your own special kind of ceremonies in a way, where you stop at a certain garage or go to a certain butcher shop or do something on the way out. That's something that is very much part of what happens to a festival customer outside the event. And all these things gather. I think raising awareness by government and regions that the event that you're putting on is actually generating income locally is sort of part of your marketing. It's part of how you, as a festival organiser, it's a kind of part of your IP, which a lot of festivals organisers don't actually look at. And you should do, because it's actually going to make you money. It's going to make you money in two ways. One is by getting grants, but it's also opportunities for engaging small businesses. It doesn't always have to be the big businesses you look at. It can be the smaller companies that are regional companies in the area. Situations of engaging local tourist board, in rural areas where agriculture isn't going to be the main finance generating thing. Tourism is massive. So, we do a thing once a year on the website where we promote tourist attractions on the Green Man website. I mean, there's a balance of it becoming, it's sort of taking away from your brand, so it makes it less funky. You don't want to become like, the Heidi-Hi of Wales there, but at the same time, it just adds to it. It's just, it's got to be a balance in that. So, we are a music festival, that's what we do primarily, but to have one mail out once a year is not going to detract from that. And it just adds to it.
But can I just add to that? I mean, we do economic impact studies for Evolution each year, and last year was the economic impact, which is the additional spend in the city on a particular related to the event was 3.2 million. So obviously that's very attractive to the city, but just by the quirk of where the site is, we have the Baltic Centre for Contemporary Art, which is one of the biggest modern art galleries in the country, on our site. And they have more visitors over the weekend of Evolution than any other weekend of the year. So they really benefit from it, and we know, because we know some of the bar operators in the immediate area, that they have record takings in that weekend of the year. So the impact of your event, and you need, as Fiona says, you need to get a hold and record these figures, because it does help when you're working with the local authority. And even if you got it off, say, us, and used us as examples, this is what happens in Newcastle, this is what happens in Palace, I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think the impact studies, anyone for a festival who doesn't do this shit, we need to do this immediately, because obviously it demonstrates the level of extra spend that your audience has spent within that area that the festival takes place. But they're really useful when you come up against difficult licensing hearings as well, when there will always be opposition to what you do, and you're sitting there with a nice big, well put together economic impact study, so that over the last 4 years or the last 5 years, this is what we've contributed to the local economy. They're really, really useful, and certainly when you run a festival like mine, which runs till the early hours in the morning, involves a lot of young people, you know, we tend, not as much, but we have in the past come up against some licensing issues, and it just gives a balance towards, you know, some of the horror stories that some of the local community would like to present at the licensing periods, the impact that's having. But actually, you know, where we are now on our new site, when we went there, we actually did a pre-study about hotel occupancy rates and everything else. And we found out that on the weekend, the year before we actually arrived where we were, the occupancy rates within about a 15-20 mile radius was less than 40%. It went to 98% when we went there. So, you know, they're really, and then you go on all the support of all the businesses as well.
I suppose it can be quite easy to forget that, as you know, you're a festival organiser and you're working very hard and all the hours of God sends. And it's very, I suppose it's quite easy to forget that what you do has a massive effect on the local community for good, for immense good. Bringing, you know, as we've heard, lots of money and tourists to the region, and cultural opportunities and so on. That, yeah, absolutely, like I said, it's really important to have that proof to councils, which can be a bit battled sometimes.
Yes, you don't have to cast your mind back that far to remember the fights that Glastonbury had to get their licence, and Redden had problems at one point. Now, we're actually part of the establishment, which is really boring. We're actually part of sort of the cultural fabric of the country, and actually we're promoted. You know, we did a thing with Visit Britain where we were actually part of with the Association of Independent Festivals, where they were actually marketing Britain using the festival scene in the UK. So that's how far, you know, all of our festivals in the industry has come on. And actually, we're like, I don't know, we're like the town of London or the Crown Jewels. We're a tourist attraction. We're in the same glossy brochures that go out around the world from all England.
FGI just produced a series of postcards to advertise Newcastle Gates. You win one of them.
There's some for kind of individual ticketed festivals for events. There's some quite good statistics on the British Arts Festivals Association website called Festivals Mean Business. So it's an FMV study, and it's not been done since 2008, but it's quite a good resource if you want to know the kind of questions to be looking for.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of students at universities that would be more than happy to engage with helping smaller capacity festivals to produce economic impact assessments.
You're stealing my line, aren't you?
You can pay me later.
Yeah, I mean, we will have students doing sort of dissertation topics in that area for smaller festivals. And if it's a big kind of event, you know, the staff will get involved and there'll be pupils doing it. And I just want to hammer home the point made earlier that if you haven't done that kind of thing, you really must if you're getting any kind of funding, because it's the big flag that you can wave, really. And of course, with an academic hat on, I should be saying how you have to measure it carefully and all this kind of thing. But the truth is that people are out there just getting the biggest number they can to prove it.
Well, I think it's important that you give it, it's completely independent of you. So, you know, we've used we used the Mersey Partnership in the past when we were based in Liverpool. Now we use Manchester University, so it's completely independent. We just give them access to, they have their people on the day doing the research, so very good.
How about other income streams? Merchandise I'm thinking of. At the Festival Awards, when we asked the public to come and vote for their favourite festivals, they also get the opportunity to fill in the UK Festival Census, where we grill them on about 80 questions to do with festivals. We had about 3,500 people respond this year, and about 50% of them said that they would buy festival branded merchandise. Are you all taking full advantage of that?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, everyone likes a gig shirt. I mean, so yeah, I think the spend at Creamfields is really, really good for merchandise, especially when the weather gets a bit cold.
Are we being a little bit lacking in imagination though? I mean, festivals are tourist attractions, as we just heard. Do you just want to buy a t-shirt? Maybe you want to buy something more of a souvenir.
Well, I don't know what souvenirs, but I know it's important that, you know, we found it really important to have a range of different stalls, and we do deals with sort of market traders and that, so people can take. But we try and aim it specifically at quirky stores that you won't see in Newcastle and Gateshead, and you know there may be some clothing or there may be some hats or stuff like that, you know, that you can buy. So just it's also part of an offer as well. But we do our own merchandise and that. Just because it's easier to manage and it's easier, you know, we've got a member of our extended family, so to speak, who specialises in that and has done like punk t-shirts around the country for 20 years. So he's doing our merchandising with us directly this year. I mean, the problem is that, you know, sometimes, like we did, a lot of festivals to sell lanyards. We did them one year and people just didn't like them. Our crowd just didn't like them. We ended up with thousands of them left over, and we lost money on producing lanyards, which is unheard of. But it was just because, you know, I think with our events in Newcastle and Gateshead, we get a lot of people that come from the North East who may not attend other events, may not go to other festivals. So some things that work at other festivals just don't work for us, you know what I mean? So you've also got to be careful, because obviously some of these things are costly to produce, you know. And then, you know, you can end up with them on your hands.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that artists are getting more and more creative with the kind of merchandise that they produce, limited edition prints, all kinds of bits and bobs, and I was just wondering how that could be applied to the festival side of things.
It's difficult at a festival because, you know, you can only sell them what they can carry on with them. I mean, you know, you buy a poster at a festival, by the time you get to Monday morning, you've still got it. It's a mess. So, you know, I don't think you have to be a brain surgeon to walk around a festival and see people carrying, you know, one hand they'll probably have a t-shirt and the other a pint of beer. So, you know, I think certainly my audience, they come to parties, so the lanyard works really well because it goes around the neck. So, you know, if we try to sell a paper-based program, we'll just end up picking them up all weekend. Yeah. So I think it's, you know, I think you've got to understand your audience and what they want, and also I think you've got to be sensitive that you're not trying to drag every single penny out of them by offering them half-baked ideas to get them to spend more money. They're already spending a lot on the ticket, car parking, and maybe a bit of merchandise.
Does anybody sell merchandise outside of their core festival dates?
Yeah, I do. I have a website, on the Green Man website, and we sell. I mean, I think most festivals, or many festivals, do that. Okay. But I mean, it is interesting thinking about what Jane says. Absolutely right. You need to know your audience, and for the Big Chill, they went bonkers on merchandise, on everything from doggy coats to cups and everything in between. It was a cornucopia of merchandise, and that taught me a big lesson, because I mean the Big Chill audience were big spenders. They really spend more money, but it was exactly what you said. They weren't interested in baby stuff and baby grows and doggy coats and, you know, cups and saucers and dinner services. They really just went for the t-shirts and the sweatshirts, and the cost of it went to a tremendous loss. So, you know, you have to. The thing is about festivals, you don't have any opportunity of, you know, this is it. You have one weekend a year, you've got to make it work, and you can't try these things out and see if it's going to work, because you've got to make your money and you've got to have a successful event. So stuff like that, which people get really into, can really not be a good idea.
I want to move on to, this might sound a little corporate, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I think too often festivals can think too much that, you know, can perhaps not consider the business elements of their business enough. I don't want to insult anybody, but often music and the heart and passion can sometimes rule ahead. Stephen, I wanted to kind of bring you in here in particular to talk about some simple elements which festivals and festival organisers could perhaps implement to their business, or some certain thinking. Now, I don't want to be patronising to anybody. I'm sure everybody here is exceptionally bright and is doing a great job. But I think there's always some tips that one can have, especially if one doesn't have any formal business training, I know you have sort of MBA background. I just wonder if there's any sort of tips that people can have right now that they could perhaps apply to their business, which would really help. That was a really clumsy way of putting this, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Just drop me straight in.
Yeah, no,
that's fine, that's fine. Couple of things. I come across quite a few festivals who will hire their PR and say, go away and get on with the job, you know. Festival's busy sorting out its running programme, timing, all the sort of operational stuff from that point of view. PR's beavering away, but never really get any feedback from what PR does. And I think that's something that you should always be getting with your PR. I'm interested in hear what experience others have from that front, whether the PRs are really good at saying, you know, you paid me this and I got you this publicity. Can you tell me that one in a minute?
Yeah, we get fortnightly reports from our PR company, so and then as it gets close to the event, we get weekly reports. So, and we're on the phone to them all the time. I speak to mine daily. I think you've got to be really on top of your PR. You know what I mean?
I personally think, I mean, and this works for me, is that I don't bring any outside contractors in on what I do. Everybody that works on my festival works in my office, and I work with them every single day, so I know exactly what they're doing. And we've tried different outside marketing companies, outside sponsorship companies, outside PR companies. I hope no one's going to be insulted, especially in London. You're getting the trousers taken off you, I'm telling you now. And I swear to God, you know, I think you're right. I mean, they're working with dozens of clients, and the thing is, they'll work on your thing if it's easy. When you become a problem, you go to the back of the queue, and they'll work on all the glossy, nice, shiny things to keep in with the journalists and stuff. So my advice to anybody would be, if you can't do it yourself, and your brother can't do it, get someone you can trust to do it, because that's my motto. I have them working for you, right next to you, so you can see what they're doing every day.
I think one thing that festivals can learn from the corporate world is like what you say about risk management, and quite a lot of corporate companies all have risk policies and things like that, worst case scenario policies. So what happens if the manager dies, you know, that's really morbid, or the building burns down, or there's a flood, or something like anything like that. And I think, you know, maybe all of us here work in really small teams, and actually quite a lot of it is up here, and you might not have written down what your annual job, you know, what do you do every day, how do you make that festival year work. And the risk management, and I know there's a City of London Festival just gone for a big kind of risk analysis, and it took about 2 weeks, I think, of the manager's time to go through it, and she was looking at things like governance, and what if, I don't know if you've got steering committees or boards or things like that, what if your board members don't, you know, they lose interest, or they're not really helping you anymore? What policies have you got in place for that? Or grievance procedures for staff and things like that. Do you have that kind of policy? What if your right-hand man or woman is off sick for 6 months? How do you deal with that? Financial, you know, public and private sectors. What if you don't make the money that you have? What are your policies? I don't know if maybe everyone's much more organised than anyone I've met, but I think that's something that we miss a trick. In the kind of corporate world, they're all doing this, they have to do it, but I don't think, as a festivals, it's not, in my experience anyway, it doesn't really happen on that level.
I think you're right. I mean, with my work with my other business generator, we've got all of those procedures in place, and we have to because of what we're dealing with. But I think one of the things about the festival scene in this country, apart from when you jump up to the big festivals, is they are very organic and run by people who have just got a really good idea, and I think that's the appeal of them. You know, there's two guys that I started mentoring years ago, and they now have done very successfully run Kendall Calling, and you know, this is the first year we've used a production team. There was a few reasons, a couple bad and some good, for why they made that decision, and you know, they've got other people involved in them. And I think that, you know, and one of the reasons that they took on a production team, for example, is because they're a lot better at writing risk assessments around the whole producing of the event. But I think going back to, you know, I think whatever background you come from and however organically you want to grow your event, and you know, we see some people, don't we, James, who run festivals on the AAF who are completely potty. We run amazing events, you know what I mean? I won't name names, but you know, I bumped into one of them in America the other week, and he's completely potty, but his event's amazing. But I'm sure that they just grow organically. But I think that the bottom line is however you want to do it, you've got to have a budget, you've got to stick to your budget. I think it's very important what James said. And I've learned that as a promoter, you can't get carried away by desperately wanting an artist. And then, because an agents are, you know, they're very, very shrewd, and if they think that you desperately want that artist, then their fee will double, if not treble. You know, so I think you've got to set your budgets, do your research into how much things are going to cost is another important one. I see a lot of events, we all see a lot of events come onto the market. People go, we're going to do this, and such is going to do it, and then they go, oh, it's not happening because of the police costs, because they never actually went and found out how much the police costs might be, what the production costs might be, or the licensing costs might be. And I think it's really important to do that research before you stick your head over the parapet and do anything.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's still a business. So, and it's you need to find somebody who is creative enough and understands music enough and has got enough business savvy to be able to run a successful festival.
You know, I know what my limitations are, and I knew what my limitations was 20 years ago. So as soon as I could, I surrounded myself with the people who would plug the gaps that I didn't have. So, you know, a good accountant is absolutely essential. And then, you know, a good event manager. I mean, as a promoter, we're all guilty of, I call it promoting to yourself, where you get yourself into a spiral and convincing yourself that this particular artist, even though nobody else you've spoken to likes them, but they're going to be massive, so you just keep going at it and losing money. And you know, you can't buck the trends, and I think, you know, it's so important, whilst you've always got one eye on what might happen going that way, you also have to go, right, I have got to be cautious as well here. I've got to think about, well, what happens if I don't sell tickets? And like you said earlier about, you know, can I pay the costs? You know, do I have enough money? Festivals, we were lucky, you know, our festival made money in the first year, but a lot of festivals don't make money for 2, maybe 3 years. You need enough investment to see it through that long. The most recent successful best air festival entered in the market in the last 10 years was Festival. Everybody loves this festival, and there's a guy called Rob DeBank, unbelievably creative, amazing A&R, but the festival didn't make money for, allegedly, for maybe 5 years. Now it's really successful, and the key to that particular story is that they had a really strong investor behind them who paid the bills when it was losing money for a few years. So, you know, it's a good idea is only half the story. The other half of the story is that if you're not prepared to apply, and you know, maybe you're embarrassed to apply real business common sense to what you're doing, you will fail.
I mean, can I stick something on the end of that as well, because that's right. If you're not in the position where you've got a nice sort of investor at the back of you, one of the things you've got to understand is your cash flow as you run along. Because you will have deals in place that say you have to pay so much for that artist at that point, maybe way in advance of the actual date of the festival. And therefore, if you don't watch what you're doing, you can effectively bankrupt yourself, you know, even before you get to the festival day. So you've got to understand how the cash flow is flowing in and out, as well as the budget side.
I've seen experienced festival promoters doing that. They get too, you know, it's like horse pulling, they get really excited, they get dragged along, and then boom, they make one mistake, and it's a fatal mistake, they're out of business. You know, the festival in Nottingham a few years ago, which Jeff ran, you know, he went big and booked Bjork for like a huge amount of money, and the ticket sales never arrived, and the agent's knocking on the door saying, you owe me a heap of money. The festival goes bankrupt. You know, he's now having, well, you know, trying to find the money to pay that agent off and pay that artist off. You know, it's a cruel business sometimes.
The other thing to think about is when especially in the last 5-6 years since licensing laws changed and it's much easier to put on events, people are looking at events management like a kind of a menu, a list, and they look at, oh, I need a sound guy, and I need a stage, I need artists. And the reality is that, you know, you can have 5 festivals, and you can have the same lineup, and you can have the same production, but they'll all cost different amounts of money. And the reason for that is because of the relationships the individuals have with the agents and with the service suppliers. And, you know, I know that some of the service suppliers I have charge other people a lot more money than they charge me, but I've been working with them for, you know, 14 years, and I have a relationship with them, and they know I'm going to deliver. There's lots of things that come up from that. With artists as well, you know, with agents, you know, they're not going to charge me the same amount of money as they're going to charge somebody else. I'm sorry, but that is actually a massive part of festival organisation, the fact that you have these ongoing, very deep relationships with what's going on. And people say, well, it sounds like a closed shop. Well, you know, it is a bit. You know, it takes a long time for people to, and you need to be out there at events like South by Southwest and glad handing people and going off and doing smaller events and working for other festivals to get those kind of relationships yourself. So there's kind of quite the festivals I've seen that have gone under, and they seem to go under in 2-3 years, and people have just gone in there, bought their shopping list, had a bit of money, and the trouble is they've gone in there with the prices at top rate, you know, thinking, well, this is it, this is how much a festival costs, and they see other similar events running well and profitable, and think, well, you know, in 4 years suddenly this kind of nirvana's going to happen, and it's all going to become into profit. Well, the reality is it's never going to be in profit because you're paying too much from the offset, and that's not going to come down. The other thing is that vanity thing. The festivals I've seen that have gone under, it's vanity, usually. People not taking on board that, you know, that they need someone else involved, they need to remove themselves from a particular position, you know, they need to get rid of, you know, it's exactly what James said, you need the right people doing the right job. And often if you get the right production company, they'll bring those fees down because they'll have those relationships and they'll bring that right into your event. So, you know, think about that and look around. But again, some production companies will charge you more because you're new into the game than they will with other people. So it's not an automatic thing.
I want to start wrapping up this part of the session. We'll take a quick break for about 5 or 10 minutes. And we'll go to the loo or grab a bar, drink from the bar. There'll be some drinks at the end as well, which I think can't get on my tune walk. Of course.
Thank you to our sponsor.
Yes. But yeah, if you want to take a quick break for 5 minutes, I'll come back and hopefully with some conversation from you guys. So you're going to get some fresh air. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you very much.